Welcome to Discovering Your Truth Talks, awesome conversations with inspiring people. I'm Calan Breckon, your personal development coach on this weekly adventure to help your journey and the world around you. Well, hello, everyone, to another episode of Discovering Your Truth Talks, awesome conversations, inspiring people, and I am so stoked for you to hear today's episode. Today, my guest is the amazing Joanna the Medium. Joanna's had a remarkable psychic gift since birth, and she is one of the most talented intuitives and mediums on the planet today, in terms of her accuracy, skills, knowledge, and speed. And after our interview today, I completely agree. The woman knows her stuff. What makes Joanna wildly different from all the rest is that she brings to the table a lifetime of powerful healing experiences, both personally and professionally, which helps her deliver not only profound accuracy, but profound results. I've been following Joanna's YouTube page for quite some time now, and each month she releases an intuitive reading for each astrological sign that can sometimes be up to an hour in length, and every time I watch it, I am blown away by her insights. It's as if she's doing a reading just for me. It's crazy and amazing how on the spot she is. I love watching it once a month. I always go to my computer, pull it up, see what she has to say for the month, and she's always spot on. It's freaky. It's amazing. It's freaky. It's awesome. Also, before we started our chat today, we discovered we actually grew up in the same town. Like, what a small world. Shout out to Coquitlam, British Columbia, Canada. What? So if you're from there, give me a shout. Let me know. So without further ado, I'm very excited to share with you my interview with the amazing Joanna the Medium. Well, hello. Welcome to the show, Joanna. How are you?
I am good, Calan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm great.
I'm so excited to have you on. Would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yes. Thank you again for having me. My name is Joanna. I call myself the Medium, though I'm not sure if that's what I will call myself going forward. But for now, this is what my business name is under. It's Joanna the Medium. And as the name suggests, I am a medium, but I'm also a healer, and hence the wording kind of being awkward right now. But I'm a medium and a healer.
Nice. And I actually found you on YouTube quite a few months ago, and I follow your monthly horoscopes. So are you still going to be doing those? Is that going to be a focus?
That will be the focus, because that is the best way that I can reach great audience. And the bigger platform I have, and YouTube is a big platform, the more I can spread whatever my work is. So that will always be a part of what I do. Not only that, my aim is to help as many people as I can. Not everybody is able to, to have a personal session with me. So my aim is always to give in a way that, although may not be for a specific person, the information that I give can be translated pretty much into any aspect of one's life.
Mm-hmm. So when did this all start for you? When did you start tuning in? I know that it's sort of very young for you, but how did that look? What was it like growing up and having that energy around you?
So here's the interesting thing. In my experience of knowing people who have this gift, and by the way, when I say who have this gift, as far as I'm concerned, everybody has this gift. It's just not everyone is attuned to it. Not everyone believes it. Not everyone wants to practice it. But I believe that we are inherently equipped with this, like Siri, we come equipped with it. So I don't really have much recollection in the younger days, except maybe for two occasions that when I look back, I go, okay, that is significant, but I didn't know that then. So the only thing that I remember when I was growing up is that about the age of 5, I remember being in the old country in Poland, and I was overcome by this tremendous sadness. And I remember this as if it was yesterday. And I said out loud, God, why am I here? And then, that was it. And then that memory came back to me in my 30s, and I went, wait a minute. I don't think that's a typical question that a child asks themselves at age of 5. So that's the first example. The second one is another memory of my mom and I were walking somewhere, and it was in the dark, and I just said, oh, there's a needle, and I picked up the needle. And my mom was kind of mesmerized how I could see a needle in the dark. And I remember her saying to someone, I think it might have been my aunt, she said, Joanna can pick up things in the dark. And when I remembered that, it made me go, oh, wait a minute, that was a metaphor. Because my work is really trying to help people see what they're not able to see. So in order for me to help them to see, I first have to see it myself. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, because I've definitely had the intuitive flair myself, so I can see what you're talking about, that it's like a mental image for myself. It's like a mental image that comes in, and then I just start talking about whatever that mental image is, and usually it pertains to somebody who's in the room, and somebody starts going, what are you talking about?
So in terms of intuition, when I think about it, I don't think I thought of myself as an intuitive person, because I just thought of myself as being myself. I don't know what it's like to be somebody else, right? So the idea of intuition or intuition actually didn't enter my life, my cognition, until about late 20s, when I was going through a really difficult time in my life, where I would say, I kind of hit rock bottom a little bit, where all my insecurities came up to the surface, and I began to realize that there's been so many times that I've known what was going to happen, but I chose not to hear it, or I chose not to pursue it, or I chose to ignore it. And at that point, I went, okay, there's something more to it than that. So it's almost like my perception has shifted when I was able to observe myself as having this thing called intuition that proceeded to show me things that would happen in the future. But at that time, I didn't know it. I only knew that later on.
Yeah, totally. So you were talking about your insecurities. So when did you step into doing this kind of work and move through those insecurities? That must have been around that 20-year-old range.
It around the age of 28, where I kind of went, okay, my life has to change, or I don't think I'm going to be here. And I kind of, without going into too much details, I wasn't a very happy child. I always carried this this heaviness, this sadness. Obviously, part of it is the way you grow up, and society and environment, all that kind of stuff. But I believe the reason why I felt that is because I'm here to help transform it for not only for myself, but also help other people transform it. Does that make sense? I'm trying to see if I'm explaining it correctly. They're saying keep going. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yeah, that totally makes sense to me, because I've felt so many times where I felt so stuck in life, and I felt like I was hitting a wall, even though I knew I was doing the wrong thing, and I knew that what the right thing was. It was like I was pretending that the right thing wasn't actually there, even though I knew it intuitively. It was there, but I was ignoring it.
Yeah, when I tune into that feeling, that sadness, it was very much about me not accepting myself. I was not in acceptance of myself, and I didn't realize that until I realized it. Okay, but the non-acceptance of myself was absolutely necessary for me in order so that I could learn how to accept myself. Because unless I know how to accept myself, I cannot share that with others. Because I have no understanding of it. I may have a cognition, but it's not experience. Therefore, it cannot be wisdom, because wisdom only comes through experience. Right. So it's almost like the way I see it. I chose, quote unquote, to come into this world to conditions that would make me feel a certain way, and those conditions in turn will solidify a belief system from which my experiences would stem. Make sense?
Oh, yeah. I'm on board. I'm a very understanding in that world type of person. So can you explain to the listeners, for maybe somebody who's not so familiar with the intuitive mediumship world, how it looks for to you? Because I know it's different for everybody. There's different types, but how does that look like for you?
I'm trying to see how to best describe it, and partly because it changes all the time. So the way I was intuitive years ago is now different. I perceive things differently. It's almost like, so let's just back up for a second. If I was to explain intuition, I would say it's that gut feel that everybody has. Everybody has a gut feel. Not everybody calls it intuition, but because we come equipped with it, right? However, if we are not in tune with it, or if we are in self-rejection mode, it's going to be very hard for us to be connected to our intuition. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm on board.
So right now, for example, just back up again. To me, the way I perceive information, it's like my own specific language, because I receive it through feelings, I receive it through knowing, I receive it through hearing, and I receive it through seeing and hearing. So it comes in various ways, but it's not necessarily a sentence. It is more of symbols. Sometimes I'll hear a sentence, sometimes I hear a word, sometimes I'll feel it, but oftentimes it comes to me in metaphors and in symbols. So for example, when I have a session with a client and I prepare, and because I want to present them information for the first little while before they tell me anything, I will be given information and a whole bunch of symbols, and I have learned what each symbol means. So there's no need for explanation of the symbol because I already have a connection to it.
Okay. All right. That makes sense, because sometimes you never know what's going to come at you. And if you're just learning, you're like, oh, well, what does this symbol mean? But because you've been doing this work for such a long time, you now can recognize what different symbols and different energies are.
Yes. And the more I recognize it, and I've noticed this lately, especially in the last few weeks, it comes faster and faster. It comes fast. So it's like in the past, it would have come much slower and I would have to kind of just sit with it and really dive into it. Now it's almost instantaneous, where I see a symbol, boom, and I already say whatever it is. So, but that allows for more of information to flow through me.
Mm-hmm. So it was like you had to build the trust in this intuitive tool that you had.
Oh, dear God, yes. And you know what? I think I just snorted. You know what? I still deal with it, and I'm very open about this. I always say to people, you can do everything that I do, but I'm telling you, I still feel the same things that you do. I still feel doubt. I still feel lack of trust sometimes. I still have those things because they're still very much a part of me. They're still connected to me. However, I'm not invested in them as much.
So how did you work? How do you and how did you work through your insecurities around this?
Well, years and years and years of fascination with the mind. The mind has always fascinated me. Ever since I remember being about 5 years old, and my dad and I were watching TV, and I remember being glued to the freaking TV because there was UFO on. It was just this fascination. So UFO is one of the things that I was gravitating towards, but the understanding the mind and how a person works and kind of going deep into psyche, that's always been my fascination. And I believe because of that, I have made a point for me to understand myself and understand what my feelings are saying to me, understand what my intuition is saying to me, understand what my inner truth is, which majority of people that I speak with, and that's like 95%, we do not understand our own inner truth because it's mostly subconscious. So let me just go off the side for a second. Some time ago, 10, 15 years ago or so, I chose to go into a hypnotherapy course. That aligned with the fascination of the mind. I knew from a very early age that people would gravitate towards me and they would tell me things that were so personal without knowing me at all. And after a while, I kind of went, there's something there. Like they're drawn to me. There's something I must be evoking or embodying or whatever you want to call it that draws people in. And it felt to be, maybe they felt safe. Maybe they felt they could trust me. And I thought, there's something to it. And I feel that I could do something with this. So I looked into traditional psychology, but for whatever reason, it just didn't click. I didn't know why, but it just didn't click. And then one day, the idea of hypnotherapy came up, and I chose to take my own hypnotherapy session. And that's when the door opened. That's when I realized, oh my God, I now understand why traditional psychology didn't really resonate with me because my fascination is with a deeper aspect, with the subconscious aspect. And at least to my understanding, traditional psychology does not dive into deep subconscious aspect. It's mostly on a conscious level, cognitive level.
So what was that first initial hypnotherapy session like for you? What kind of door did that open?
So when I went there, she did a past life regression on me. And in the past, I used to deal quite a lot with issues with my digestion, which I now understand what it is. I didn't then. So that first time when I went there, I regressed into a time where I was shown a vision where I was injured to the point where I died in my abdominal area. So for whatever reason, I brought that with me in order to heal it. And it was interesting because the person who did that was my then husband, who is now my partner. And that's because he had someone on the side, and in order for him to be with her, he had to get rid of me. And that explained to me why we had at the beginning this funny, just this interesting dynamic. Like we couldn't quite click. And that's because the original energy, so to speak, needed to be transformed. So we both came together in order to move through it, move past it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yep. It's like those soul contracts you make with people. You don't know why they came in or what they're doing, but they're there for a reason.
Yeah. And ultimately, later on, I realized that one of the reasons why we are together is so that I can learn to trust myself. And how that was being done is I put him on a pedestal. I made him, I believed that he was better than me.
Ooh, yeah. No, nobody's better than nobody. I've learned those lessons.
Right. But I had to grow into it. I had to understand it, right? So when you come from insecurity, you have a tendency to think that everyone is better than you, that you're not as smart, that you're not as educated, that you're not as good, you're not whatever, you're not as valuable. It's just standard, right? And then you put people on pedestal. And then generally what happens is you look towards those people to make you happy, to fulfill your dreams, to make you feel safe, except none of that can happen.
Because it has to happen from the inside outwards.
Yeah, it's like I say to my clients, I cannot save you $20 worth of happiness. I can't do that. The only thing that I can do is I can show you how you are limiting yourself from experiencing happiness. But what you do with that, it's not up to me.
Wow, I love that. How I can show you how you're limiting yourself to happiness, but I cannot tell, like I can show you, but you have to do the work.
Absolutely, because I can't do the work for you. It doesn't exist. I can't put off a switch and say, okay, now you're happy. It doesn't exist. And here's where the truth comes in, where I was told actually a few weeks ago in my meditation, it just came, this awareness came over me and was like, Joanna, you have a very simple job. I don't mean simple as in not quality, but simple as in it's pretty simple. Your job is help people to understand their own truth, and then help them understand how their own truth differs from the truth they would like to experience, and then show them what they need to do in order to be a match for that experience.
I love that because this show is obviously called Discovering Your Truth Talks. So it's so it's just perfect that here you are helping teach people what their truth is and helping them reconcile what they want their truth to be versus what their intuitive truth actually is, and bringing that together so that they can live a more, I'm going to guess, abundant happiness, abundant life full of more joy and alignment.
That's right. And oftentimes people feel that their fear is their intuition, but it's often not the case.
So what is their fear usually revolve around?
Let me look at it. You mean in general, from what I experienced?
Yeah, like let's take an everyday person who is coming to you, and what is the average fear that they're coming to you around, like energetically?
So you might have heard this before, and I've heard it before. I understood it cognitively, but then one day it was shown to me where I was aware. Majority of people are afraid of their own power.
Ooh.
And that's because, And I was shown this on my skin. It felt absolutely brutal. Excuse my friend.